Damn it, I need to get back into my groove. Well, I've had something. Anything to go off of.
Much as the topic of unbalanced...
It's almost like it's a sign, but I need something else.
Personally, of course, I'm not the biggest fan of Anita's show. It's kinda just game theory, but for feminists.
Game theory. Game theory.
So let me set the record straight. When it comes to my channel, I tend to get away from topics such as politics, religion, and killer clowns. I prefer to stick with more... how do you say it?
My groin!
Yeah, that seems about right. Of course, sometimes you need to be able to get out of your comfort zone and take the plunge into something new. I can't always rely on kicks to the groin. So enter Quinton Reviews. Some guy who got big over the last few months ever since he put out his grade A under A videos. I've seen a few of his vids and the guy can be very well spoken, entertaining, and he's got a glorious beard. A shame his video on what happened to Vidcon was less than stellar. Such a waste of a good beard. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, yes, I am aware that this avatar looks like Lewis from Mystery Skulls. If that's all you're gonna say to discredit me on this topic, then congratulations, you have the debating tactics of the average game theory fan brat.
Sometime mid to late Thursday, I was hanging out with a couple YouTubers I quite like, and I pointed out that there were at least 3 or 4 panels scheduled for VidCon all about the representation of women in online content. Eric, better known as Commenticate, wisely pointed out that those panels would be absolute disasters if all the people attending represented the same demographic that would make up the comments on a similar video of the same nature. I chuckled, because it was a good joke. So as we talked, we began to receive small pieces of information about the going-ons at the convention, and we briefly talked about the tweets and the rumors. We learned, essentially, of an otherwise non-notable panel that had caused quite a stir when notable members of the commentary community protested the discussion by arriving in bulk and taking up most of the seats and questions.
I'm sorry, but protest? I mean, from the footage that was shown multiple times by various people, there wasn't anything that could be counted as a protest. From what was shown, the crew was being polite. Even after the whole insult, the crew wasn't even mad. They just continued sitting there.
Attention if you're a garbage human. Whatever, dude. Wow! But it's, you know, like the fact that these dudes are making endless videos that just go after every feminist.
They just continued sitting there. Yes, I won't deny that the skeptics, or whatever the hell you want to call these guys, did show up early, but they took up the bulk of the seats in the questions? I mean, if we're just talking about who specifically showed up, they only took up the first 3 rows on a single side. You even say this later in the video. As for the questions, I mean, I watched the video of the Q&A, but did the members of the commentary community, as you referred to them, actually do that? I mean, even looking at the screenshot here, they clearly aren't taking up most of the seats. You can clearly see there's plenty of other seats. Now, one could argue that I'm playing semantics here, but I want to take note of the wording that Quinton's using here. I don't want to accuse him of anything, but this feels like he's trying to make this situation out to be more intimidating than it actually is.
The panel itself was known simply as Women Online Discussion, and one of the people attending was the rather infamous Anita Sarkeesian. Sarkeesian has built up quite the reputation, not just for having opinions that are in any way disagreeable, but by her inability to properly respond to or acknowledge criticism, and by her amazing talent at controlling a narrative. Personally, of course, I'm not the biggest fan of Anita's show. It's kinda just game theory, but for feminists. Just about as much research, conclusions that only make sense if you manage to not look at half the picture. You get the idea.
Well, at least MatPat hasn't pulled any terminology that's similar to
F2 maybe from all across the world, outside of the Demo Man and maybe the Pyro, they're all white male.
Oh my god!
She spends a lot of the show attacking specific games for doing things that seem pretty irrelevant in the wider context, and when she finally got around to describing the ideal non-misogynistic game, she basically just described the plot to Mulan.
Is that what this is?
I mean, I don't remember Mulan being trapped in a dungeon waiting for a prince to save her, then breaking out of the dungeon. Now, while this may seem like a nitpick, I think this paints a bit of a broader picture of the video. The fact that Quinton doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. Or, at the very least, doesn't do a lot to give Quinton credibility. This was one sign, but another sign was that he was referring to people like Sargon of Akkad, the Warski brothers, Mundane Matt, and the rest of those dregs of society as members of the commentary community. Well, yes, they are commentators. Can you really say they're part of the commentary community? If anything, they're more in line of the skeptic community. I mean, when you think commentary community, you think of people, well, Pyrocynical, I'm Alex, that was the alien, and other people who I don't really care about.
The point is that Anita's less than perfect show ended up creating an entire pantheon of creators who were against people like her.
Wow, that's a pretty wide brushstroke you got there, man. A lot of these people's channels didn't really come into existence because of Anita. There were a variety of reasons. Hell, Chris Raygun, for example, his channel was originally made for music. By the way, good call there, cutting your hair better, buddy.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Wants to get my giblets,
but he can't have them.
And more importantly, it has potentially led to many people who disagree with her being labeled as outright misogynistic harassers just for disagreeing with anything that she has to say. It's the difference between debating someone's point of view and trying to invalidate their right to ever even have a point of view.
I'm just gonna take that right there, it's gonna be important.
So when Sarkeesian, for the first time as far as I can tell, decided to host a panel with an open mic where she was willing to talk to anyone with a question at all, it was then obvious that people were going to decide to show up in bulk. And they did, taking up nearly 3 rows of this panel about women being represented online. And Sarkeesian almost immediately texted security, hoping that they could be removed or that they could end the panel, evidently.
Now you're being specific about the 3 rows.
He protested the discussion by arriving in bulk and taking up most of the seats and questions.
Lovely. Consistency, please.
It obviously didn't take very long for her to snap as she and the other panelists started mocking those who began to ask questions, and Sarkeesian most infamously called out a random person not asking questions and not disrupting the show for being, quote, a shithead.
If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit over and over again. It's like, I hate to give you attention because you're a garbage human. Whatever.
Sargon of Akkad. You know, the guy who you said earlier was protesting when was among the group you showcased earlier? By your own words there, Quinton, not asking questions and not disrupting the show, Sargon wasn't instigating this. So which is it? Was Sargon protesting, or was he not disrupting the show? Another inconsistency that really makes your video weird. I mean, I get you want to be a neutral party, but frankly, the fact you just flip-flop here makes it seem like you're painting a really weird picture.
Consider this from the point of view of the people trying to run this panel. The whole thing is about how women online face certain levels of harassment not seen by all creators. And they came to this panel to meet with female content creators and to encourage them to push past that boundary. And the moment they walk out on stage, they have to come to terms with the fact that most of the audience of this event is male. And
so, not only would I like to point out that you only point out reference here is a few pictures and screen captures, which, mind you, have women in them, and only showcase a single portion of the audience. For all we know, there could be more women in the audience since it was a big panel hall. But that's beside the actual point. You forget that Anita Sarkeesian has addressed the UN and has done various other panels and has spoken at other venues as well. It isn't a matter of who's in the crowd, since Anita has spoken to a lot of different crowds and should know proper etiquette and how to deal with crowds regardless of their gender. And there's more I want to say regarding this, but I want to save it for another interjection.
more importantly, these men have come equipped with the stupidest questions of all time.
I'm just curious, the various things that you've said online over the past few years, do you truly believe them?
Okay.
Hey, everything that you've ever said? Hey, do you believe everything that you've ever said? Shut the fuck up.
You see, they just didn't care.
Hey, nice condescending attitude you got there, buddy. But I fail to see how that is a dumb question, especially when it comes to Anita Sarkeesian, who has so many contradicting statements in her career online. One such example is that she loves games and played them ever since she was a little kid, and how in that black and white video she said she's not a fan of video games. Or if we want to go with a more recent example, a user by the name of Prince Asbel, and holy hell, I managed to say his name right, I think, pointed this out.
I make a video on YouTube
And it's not harassment, it's just, this is my opinion about how this bitch is horrible, and how her ideas are bad.
Well, that's rather honest of you, Anita. You say they call you the B word and criticize your ideas, but that's still not harassment. It's like you changed your mind from what you said in 2015 when you were speaking at the UN.
To recognize that harassment is, as someone had mentioned, it's not just what is legal and illegal, right? Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck, you know, making all of these hate videos to attack us on a regular basis, and the mobs that come from those hate videos, etc.
You said if people called you a liar or said you sucked, then they were harassing you. But less than 1 year later, we have you on record saying that even videos that call you the B word aren't in and of themselves harassment. It's like you're exonerating your critics with your own words.
So Anita's point of view of what harassment is and isn't has changed drastically from what she said a year ago. You can't argue that she could have changed her mind, yes, since that can happen within a year. But it's still a legitimate question to ask what her beliefs are on these sorts of subjects, since they seem to change drastically over the time. But back to my point, there were other questions. Quinton, you are cherry-picking. You did a terrible job of it.
It must seem to the people on stage that these men have shown up to protest the mere thought that women deserve a voice in the online community. And that is a horrifying concept. That you would be so enraged by the idea of a woman taking part in a discussion that you would protest one of their events in bulk to intimidate them.
Hey, remember a few minutes ago when I said I had more I wanted to say? That is an assumption you put forth. Just because there are men in the audience, that automatically means they're up against the idea of more female content creators? That's assuming intent. Also, ironically, that in and of itself is sexist. Now, I'm not really specifically talking to Quinton here, I'm more or less jumping from him to the people watching this video, because I actually do agree with what Quinton says next.
And this was the tension that many news outlets called upon when they made a claim that this was an example of harassment towards those on the stage, from the audience to the female presenters. And I think there's some logic to that, but at the base, what we're seeing here is still nothing more than a protest. If this were any other ceremony fighting against any other idea or any other public speaker, do you really think that something as small as a group of people against the issue sitting in the audience would be seen as a targeted attack? Of course not. It's just that people don't agree with the certain group that has arrived to this debate, and they want to use any means to victimize the people on the stage who were attacking people in the audience.
And that's what's really frustrating about this video. That's actually a really good observation about the situation and described it well. But your attempts at being neutral or holding this back as your choice terminology, i.e. protesting, is painting the skeptics in a more negative light, and how you painted the one guy who asked an actual legitimate question as an idiot. It's these sorts of things that hold back the video from being actually good.
Chicken attack, chicken attack.
No repercussions for her persistent, unprofessional actions. In fact, the official Vidcon response by Hank Green, or at least someone representing him, noted that Sarkeesian had broken the rules, but the majority of said letter was directed towards discrediting the person that she had attacked. And in fact, the writer claimed that Sarkeesian was then apologized towards after the event. While I can respect choosing to give a speaker a second chance, surely you can understand that if said speaker publicly shows no remorse for what she did, and in fact only wishes to send more hate towards said creator, then she doesn't really seem intent on changing her ways.
You know, I just want to point out that you yourself, Quinton, aren't doing this. Hell, you'll do it later in the video with someone who wasn't even at VidCon. You're attempting to discredit people on a poor basis, as I've already demonstrated here. I just wanted to note the hypocrisy.
Not that the people who went to this thing had planned for anything but this to happen. Now, Sargon himself released a video saying that no one who went planned for her to respond like that, and that they weren't really looking for a reaction, they just wanted to hear what she had to say, and that's a lie. I was there, I talked to people who were going, I knew the plan. Plan was, people that don't like Anita Sarkeesian were gonna sit in the front row, and she was gonna have a funny reaction. Don't pretend that that's not what you were trying to do. I mean, I get it though. It's politics. You gotta lie to get your point across.
So, basically, you're using personal experience to prove intent. I mean, who did you talk to? Mundane Matt, Chris Reagan, Bunty King? This unknown sample of people that you talked to are representative of everyone's intentions? You're putting forth that this was a conspiracy, and the only thing you have to back it up is your word, which, sorry, I don't trust. Hell, you know what you could have done to actually prove your point? There's a clip online that actually has Mundane Matt saying this.
Okay, about what's gonna happen.
Hilarity.
Now, I would still argue that that was just his intent, and doesn't necessarily represent the whole of those who are in the front rows. But it is a lot more than what you put forth, Quinton. Hell, going to Andy Worski, he claims that they just went down there so they could talk, and they actually had to tell people to be quiet.
We went there so we could see what they had to say, and listen, and then discuss after. We went there with no intentions of intimidation, which is in the press release. Says we went there to be intimidating. We sat there. We even looked at everyone and said, no one speak, no one shout.
Frankly, I don't know who's telling the truth here, but Quinton, you're asking your audience to listen and believe that you know what their intentions are with no actual proof.
Were you knocked on the head or something? What?
Have you not heard about this?
No, dude, I'm insulated.
Oh, dude, this is
live in the real
hilarious,
world. It's crazy.
This is a woman who's antagonized these people for years, refusing to call their opinion-based response videos anything but misogynistic in nature, even going as far in the panel to say that it's people making response videos too feminist that creates a hostile environment for women.
But it's, like the fact that these dudes are making endless videos that just go after every feminist over and over and over again, I think is a part of the issue of why we have to have these conversations. We don't just get to be online.
And yet...
Make a video on YouTube, and it's not harassment, it's just, this is my opinion about how this bitch is horrible, and how her ideas are bad.
Well, that's rather honest of you, Anita.
You see, they just didn't care.
And this was their only shot to actually be able to respond to her attacks. In that sense, I get why they did it. I just think it was a bad idea.
Now, this is something I actually will agree with. Yeah, shock of all shocks. While I don't consider taking up the 3 rows being an intimidation tactic or even a protest, I think it was a bad idea because who they're trying to do that to. Now, let me say that yes, Anita is in the wrong here. She should have been more professional and she flew off for no good reason. However, and Quinton himself has stated in this video that Anita is capable of manipulating situations due to her influence in harassment narrative. And these are people who have talked about Anita before, stuff they should know about her narratives and should know that this would have happened.
Folks, they just did not care.
Now I'm gonna skip a little bit. I mean, there's stuff about the community that he brings up, but I don't think I'm the right person to talk about that sort of thing. But I do agree that there are people who do go about their points in the wrong way as well.
Ramsey used to be someone who the anti-SJW community would so often point towards when bringing up the problems with online feminism. Her most controversial moment was when she attempted to contact people involved with Patreon's policies to have Sargon of Akkad's means of making money shut down entirely. Even people who disliked Sargon called this a huge breach of the First Amendment, an attempt to shut down someone's ability to create free speech because you disagree with it. And that's just about the worst thing that you can do online. Oh wait, you know what? I just remembered everything that Joey Salads has ever done online ever, and I take that back. That's not the worst thing you can do online, because no one's gonna top our little Joey.
Wait a minute! Because I don't want any Joey Salads BS on my channel. But if you go to the original video, Quinton will bring up an example of Joey Salads' horrible prank? And he'll use that to describe the question that Joey asked.
And then Joey shows up to the feminist panel all like, hey, harassment comes down to all kinds of genders and ages. I'm LP to a bunch of people. I didn't discriminate at all. Sorry, I got off track.
Yes, Joey Salads is a horrible person for the BS he pulled in the past. Not gonna disagree with that. But not only does this break the flow of your point, but it also goes back to you attempting to discredit the legitimate questions that was asked during the Anita panel. And if I'm gonna be honest, Joey Salads' question did seem like a legitimate question. Why do you guys act like only women face harassment online? Which, you know, if someone else asked that question, I guarantee would be just as valid. Look, I hold no respect for Joey Salads, his channel is frankly garbage in my opinion, but if we just look towards the legitimacy of the question and not who asked the questions, since remember...
More importantly, these men have come equipped with the stupidest questions of all time.
You're not being completely honest with this.
While she was once a very contentious figure, it seems to me that in recent years Ramsey has had a somewhat clean evolution. While at Vidcon, she did a keynote all about learning to discuss ideas online even without an audience.
You don't always need an audience, which is kind of ironic since I'm telling you this from a stage with a microphone and you are the audience, but go with me here. Clickbait will build an audience, but it doesn't necessarily build change. And I cannot tell you how many times I wish I could go back and call someone or send them an email or slide up in their DMs in order to squash an issue rather than dragging it out on my timeline.
And the more that I researched Ramsey, the more that I honestly found myself admiring and enjoying many of her points and videos. I mean, not always the presentation, but I agreed with most of what I heard.
I mean, where exactly are you looking? From your footage, it looks like you're only looking towards her personal channel. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But I have to ask, did you look towards her MTV videos? You know, decoded? And I want to know what exactly you stand with her points. I mean, from my own cert, a lot of the anti-SJWs, as you put them, tend to focus on her points shown in the MTV show, where she's done a lot of mental gymnastics. For example...
Why do I only get a day when they get an entire month?
You're so smart, babe.
You know what we really need? We need a White History Month.
Did someone say that there should be a White History Month?
Yeah, how'd you know?
Let me guess, you're not racist or anything, but you just think it'd be better if we didn't have a Black History Month in America at all.
Yeah, pretty much.
You see, they just didn't care.
And for those who don't actually get that, just because you want there to be something, that doesn't automatically mean you don't want there to be something of another. I mean, which opinions are you going with there, Quinton? And yes, I realize that Ramsey said in this video that Quinton points out,
because I have oftentimes found that people that I assumed had completely different opinions than me. Oh my god, I've made it. Wow, it's almost the things you say about me in your videos don't actually represent who I am.
I know it's hard to make out, but my point is that when you're the host of a video series that has been heavily criticized with you making points that are contested, the line of your opinion gets blurred easily and makes it hard to understand where you stand on these sorts of issues.
Which I think is important. But the anti-SJW community has labeled Francesca Ramsey as one of the unapproachables, as someone who has ascended past having ideas that you disagree with, and instead people seem to disagree with the fact that she still breathes oxygen. I
love how you say Francesca Ramsey is one of the unapproachables, yet in your own video, we see Andy Warski's vid titled, "I spoke to Francesca Ramsey."
This frame is a clear indication that they just didn't care.
Quick Google search, and I found an entire video by this guy named Bering, all about how upset he was at the idea that Francesca Ramsey is popular or good enough to get a Comedy Central show.
Francesca Ramsey has been a rising star in entertainment for years, and she's finally getting her own well-deserved mega platform. Yeah, sorry, she's not a fucking rising star in entertainment, she's nauseating.
He questions not her opinions, not her stances, but rather he just seems to be upset that she can succeed on a professional basis while many people on YouTube don't like her. You see, this is an important distinction. You didn't make this video because you had a political point to make. You made it because you dislike a woman online and you wanted to remove their ability to have a voice. The difference between debating someone's point of view and trying to invalidate their right to ever even have a point of view. You made it because you dislike a woman online and you wanted to remove their ability to have a voice.
Where in that video did Bering say he wanted to remove Francesca's voice? I actually watched through that video, and Bering talks about why he thinks it's a bad idea for Comedy Central to give Ramsey a Comedy Central show. And he gives an example of her comedy and discusses how the article says that it's due to her popular YouTube channel. Also, why even bring this up? It has nothing to do with VidCon! I just love how you're cherry-picking with what Bering said while muting what his points actually are.
Of Ramsey back in 2015, when they scooped her up to become the host of the MTV web series Decoded. The Webby-nominated show explores LGBTQ rights issues, the perils of the severely disadvantaged in this country, race, celeb culture, and so much more. And it bombed spectacularly. We're talking about a channel with 1.6 million subscribers. Franny was given access to an audience of 1.6 million people at the click of a finger.
Not once is he advocating for her not to get the show, but rather showing that the last show she got tanked badly. So congratulations, you just misrepresented someone again. How can you put forth an argument that takes in the form of what Anita fears might happen when she sees multiple anti-femmes in the audience, but not give the same grace to Bering's point of view on his video on Ramsey?
You people get the ultimate irony here, right? You see it, right?
Oh, that is such a delicious little clip for this video. And that's the rest of this video. Irony. You yourself wanted to be impartial on this video, but there were a lot of points where you were willing to give up the benefit of the doubt to one side, but not the other.
They just didn't care.
There were times where you misrepresented points and people, and to be honest, while there were some things I do agree with you on, your evidence and arguments were shaky for the most part. Look, everyone makes a bad video once in a while, and I think that's what this was. A bad video. I'm Skullcommon. Have a nice day.